So 8 months since the Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services held a 2-day hearing into convicted rapist and murderer Thabo Bester's prison escape, parties involved are yet to be held accountable. In fact, Ground Up, the news journalists who first broke the story of Bester's escape, have written an update on this. Now, members of Cabinet, including Ministers Ronald Lamola and Police Minister Bheki Cele, were quizzed about this when it happened. The multinational security company G4S also faced tough questions from members of Parliament about how it is that Bester, a high-level criminal, was able to break out of a correctional centre in Mangaung seemingly undetected, or even, as is being alleged, with the help of correctional service officials who are believed to have been involved in the staging of his death in a prison fire. Well, let's speak to one of the MPs now who was active in the grilling of these officials. Advocate Glynnis Breytenbach is with the Portfolio Committee on Security and Correctional Services, also a member of the Democratic Alliance. A very good evening to you, Advocate. Good to have your time. So, Ground Up reporting that 8 months on, there's still no progress as far as accountability in the Bester escape. What is your assessment of what has happened so far, given the fact that, from what we're reading, that you yourselves have not been given a final report as a committee?
Good evening. Yeah, the committee has not received a final report. Very little, in fact, very little progress seems to have been made. It's very disappointing. Unfortunately, Parliament has been, or the Justice Portfolio Committee certainly has been exceptionally busy in the last time with a huge amount of legislation that had constitutional court deadlines, so we had no choice but to deal with it. That has eaten into our time quite considerably, and there was quite a long winter recess also, which ate into the time of the committee. So, as far as committee work is concerned, we haven't been able to reschedule a meeting with the relevant departments with regards to this Bester escape, and I've got absolutely no doubt that we will do so once Parliament resumes in January.
How high up on the priority list of the committee is this matter in the new year? And I ask that in the context of the upcoming election and the fact that there will ultimately have to be a break or a wrap of the work of the current parliamentary term.
Yeah, sure, there will be a wrap of the work. However, we certainly will push for the relevant departments to appear again before the committee. There are many unanswered questions. Using the time in recess and other time that was available to us, certainly myself and my colleagues from the DA have done our own investigations in this matter. We've met with role players, met with eyewitnesses. It's been made somewhat more difficult by the fact that there's now a criminal charge laid, and so one has to be careful how you interact with potential witnesses. But certainly we've done quite a lot of work on our own. We have many more questions to ask, and answers are not forthcoming. As I said, we have not yet received any report, and very little accountability is visible. So it's high on our priority list, and we will certainly be pushing for this matter to be brought before the committee again early in the new year.
I'm curious then about how what you found in your own investigations perhaps measures up against what was given as the explanation when the officials responsible for correctional services, policing, etc., were before the committee.
Well, there was not a lot of information available at that time. We were very reliant on the information available from Ground Up, really, and from the Judicial Inspectorate report. Our investigations have revealed some more information to us. I would not be willing to discuss it on this platform simply because answers will have to be given by the relevant departments and they appear before the committee. So I wouldn't want to place the cart before the horse. But certainly we've seen quite a number of people, and we have a lot more information available to us now than we had then.
So with that information, how useful or helpful will that information be if, for example, the DCS, the Correctional Services report, is not filed before the parliamentary term comes to an end in the new year?
I don't think they have a choice about filing a report. The committee will demand the report. It must be finalised before Parliament rises.
You spoke about the sensitivities because this is an ongoing matter. There's a criminal trial involving Thabo Bester and Dr. Nandi Famagutumana. Ground Up says in this update that when they reached out to Correctional Services spokesperson Singabako Ngumalo, they asked him, for example, about possible implementation of new policy post the Bester escape saga, and he said, well, they would not want to venture into that given that there's an ongoing investigation. Do you think that's enough of a response, given just how shocking it was that a rapist and a murderer was able to break free and remain on the outside undetected for almost a year?
Nothing about this episode is enough. The entire episode is a disgrace. It must raise so many eyebrows. It must cause such anger and distress in the community. There's nothing about this episode that's okay. And it needs to be thoroughly traversed and thoroughly brought out into the public domain. Answers must be, we must get answers for all of these questions, and people must be, most importantly, people must be held accountable. And if the people who are to be held accountable think that dragging it out until this Parliament rises, well, that will save them. They're making a mistake. The 7th Parliament will in any event carry on with this work. But certainly this Parliament, this Justice Committee will insist on a report before Parliament rises if I have anything to do with it.
And would it be sensible, for want of a better word, legally for correctional services perhaps to say there are things that remain inconclusive, especially as far as the alleged involvement of G4S officials, employees, in the escape, and that perhaps it would be most prudent to wait for the criminal aspect of the matter to wrap up before any conclusive findings can be made? Would that make sense?
Well, on one level it makes sense. There is a criminal trial, and of course that trial must run its course and be wrapped up. On the other hand, the trial itself doesn't seem to be making much progress. We see these sporadic appearances in court, and there's always a postponement for some or other reason. And the trial itself never seems to make any progress. So that's one issue that's worrying, but will have to be taken up with the National Prosecuting Authority. It's not a DCS issue. DCS should run their own disciplinary inquiries, completely independent and loose standing from any criminal inquiry, and the one is not necessarily involved with the other, nor does the one necessarily impact on the other. So that will have to be dealt with, and Parliament must deal with its oversight function independently of all three of those processes, and it's something that we will have to do and have to finalise. We can't hide behind other processes. The only difficulty is that once people are state witnesses, you need to be very careful about how you interact with them. That sensitivity must be there. And of course the state witnesses, the state gets first bite at the apple as far as state witnesses are concerned. But that doesn't preclude any other process taking place. So if the NPA can't get its act together and get this trial on the go, then the other processes must go ahead, and that's just how it has to work. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is. So the one process cannot derail the other process.
Advocate Glynnis Breytenbach, DA MP and member of Parliament's Committee on Correctional Services. Good to speak to you.